Hello and welcome to the channel. Incredibly excited to be speaking to you today about the Raldey Bamboo V3S all-terrain electric skateboard. This is probably one of the most economically priced all-terrain electric skateboards on the market, but let's discuss all of the things that we normally discuss in our reviews to ensure that this is the right board for you. The deck is composed of 8 layers of Canadian maple, and what you're also going to notice is that there is a slight concave on this deck. It's not too aggressive, but it's basically where I generally like my concave, because I don't like that super aggressive concave that makes your feet flex unevenly when riding, because that can cause some discomfort. You know, sometimes if you have too much concave, you get a lot of foot fatigue. But when you talk about this particular deck, I think it has just the right amount of concave so that your feet feel somewhat relaxed when riding the board, because it's nothing like having a great ride, beautiful day, but your feet are killing you because the concave is just too aggressive. So another area that's pretty solid on this board, I like the concave on it. When you look on top of the deck as well, you're going to see some branding from the particular company, and then the grip tape has some hexagonal shapes on there as well to kind of give it a little bit of a design. This deck is going to be somewhat on the stiffer side, and that's probably because of the material that they're utilizing with the deck, but then also the actual enclosure runs the entire length of this particular deck. So it's not going to give you too much flex, but it's not really an uncomfortable ride at all because of the large wheels that this board actually has that we'll discuss a little bit longer in the video. When you purchase this board, you have the option of choosing between 165mm wheels and 195mm wheels. And on my particular board, I have the largest set of wheels, and I'm actually a fan of these. These are not pneumatic tires, but they're kind of honeycomb structured. And there's pros and cons when you talk about pneumatic tires and this style of tires. But for the most part, I'm going to be honest and tell you, it makes for a relatively comfortable ride when riding this board. Of course, because of these large size of the wheels and the clearance that you have, you can take this board off-road. But the area that I feel like this board shines the most is when just riding in normal everyday situations, because it really makes for a very comfortable ride. In my opinion, I feel like this board is an excellent commuter, because when you're riding, they just eat up bumps and cracks. So I'm out here riding on the Atlanta Beltline right now, and they poured a slab, and when you pour a slab every so many feet, there's like a large indentation where they pour a new slab. And when you're riding on regular street wheels, you feel every single bump. Dump, 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 and it just wears your legs out. So one of the cool things about this board here, and why I say it might be an excellent commuter, is the fact that it just eats up all the cracks and vibrations. And it really helps to reduce that foot fatigue from a perspective of just riding like kind of normal terrain in streets and stuff like that. So that's another area that I think the board is really solid in when you talk about commuting and the smoothness of the ride. So another pretty solid area. You don't feel fatigue when riding this board much at all. It's very solid to me. Now, when you talk about this structure of wheels as well, you don't have to worry about puncturing and getting holes in your tire and having to stop and do maintenance and things like that. These particular wheels almost allow for just a carefree riding experience, especially for someone who actually takes their board off road and they're riding over rocks and different things like that that can actually puncture your tires if you are riding with pneumatic tires. So overall, I would say that the wheel selection is a pretty solid situation. Individuals that are really expecting to do some serious off-roading, they're probably going to want to lean toward the larger wheels like what I have here. So pretty solid, no major complaints. Battery and the ESC. When you look underneath this particular board, you're going to notice a unibody enclosure design, which houses the battery and the ESC. The battery is composed of a 10S 4-piece Sanyo battery configuration, and it's 14 amp hours. Raldey advertises that this board can get up to 19 miles range. I did not get a chance to do a range test just yet on this particular board, but what I can tell you is that when I'm riding it, the battery indicator on the remote has not been going down often at all. And one day I rode it for a good portion of some hills and things like that. So far, the range seems impressive. This board is utilizing the Yeeling ESC, and some people love it, that particular ESC, others prefer a different one. I can say that this particular ESC is pretty solid to me. It's actually very predictable and smooth, unlike some other ESCs that I've used in the past. Now, of course, when you're utilizing this particular ESC, it gives you a variety of different options. You have the push to start feature, which means that you can just roll the board and it actually turns on. So that means you don't have to bend over, touch the board and turn it on and things like that. The other thing that allows us to do is that you actually can select your acceleration modes. You have 4 modes, and then you also have 4 braking modes as well, so you can really dial in the riding experience that you like. Some people like really aggressive braking, others want a more refined braking experience. So it allows users to customize the type of riding experience that they like. Now, this particular remote also has a screen indicator on there, which gives you a variety of different information, the braking mode that you're in, the speed mode that you're in, how long you've been riding, and it also has an odometer. So it's another area that I actually enjoy with this particular board. No major complaints there as well. This board is utilizing what appears to be some generic double kingpin trucks. And double kingpin trucks are interesting because they're great for carving, but some argue that they're not as stable as reverse kingpin trucks. Now, I'm going to tell you, these trucks are incredibly maneuverable. So if you're somebody that enjoys carving and pumping around, you're really going to enjoy this. Now, the truck setup that is actually on this board right now with the bushing setup, I'm probably going to have to switch out the bushings because with my weight, I like my trucks to be a little bit stiffer when riding so that when I hit those top speeds, I feel a little bit more confident when doing so. But overall, I don't have any major complaints with these trucks. I think that they're going to allow people who really like to carve to be able to do that, but then also the maneuverability of them will allow you when you're riding in urban type situations to make those sharp turns that you may need to do. So overall, I have no major complaints with these particular trucks at all. It's going to take us into our nitpick section, which is an area that I discuss things that I think individuals considering this board should take into consideration. One of the things that I experienced, and this is something that is not unique to Raldey, I've actually experienced this on other double kingpin all-terrain boards as well, is the fact that if you're doing really sharp turns and you don't watch your foot positioning, your foot can actually hit the wheel when riding. And once you kind of understand that, you can adjust your foot placement so that that's not an issue, but you really only come into that when you're doing like a really sharp, slow turn. So it's not like you're gonna touch your feet when you're riding at high speed, but I just thought that that was something that I should mention because I did experience that a couple of times in riding a board. But once you're aware of that, you just change your foot positioning and it becomes almost a non-issue really. So that's one thing that I wanted to mention. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, and this is probably something that's maybe personal preference, but I think I would mention it. I'm probably gonna put in some different bushings just so that the trucks are a little bit stiffer and tighter when I'm riding around. And that's just because of my weight and things like that. So heavier riders, if you purchase this board, you're probably just gonna have to switch out the bushings, but that's not really a big deal because individuals who buy new boards, one of the things that they often do is change out the bushings and maybe put in bearings that they enjoy most. So that's another area that I wanted to mention, but it's not really necessarily a big deal. That's gonna take me into my final thoughts. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, this is one of the most economically priced all-terrain boards on the market. And I would honestly say that this is a solid board. There are several things that I think individuals will enjoy about this board, which are the ability to choose the wheel size that you want. So if you're gonna be doing more off-roading, you probably wanna go for the larger size wheels. So that is pretty solid there. You're also gonna enjoy the fact that it has very high clearance so that when you're doing that off-road riding, you don't have to worry about your enclosure scraping and hitting the ground. Another area that many individuals may like as well is how well this board carves. I feel like if you're a person that just enjoys the carving experience, you will enjoy this particular board as well. And then so far, the range that I've been experiencing has been pretty solid so far. When riding this board, I've only been able to get it down to about a half battery, and I've ridden it on multiple occasions, but the battery does not go down very quickly at all. So that's another area that I think individuals will enjoy about this board. So if you're looking for an economically priced all-terrain electric skateboard, I definitely think that you should give this particular Raldey board a look. As always, PEVs allow you to be everywhere, and I'll see you at the top because the bottom is too crowded. Peace.